All righty, good evening. It is September 24th, Wednesday, 2025. I'm your host here, Matthew Underwood, going live tonight. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter show. Probably won't go the full hour like most of my shows have so far, but I did want to come back on. I do apologize. Last night I was supposed to go live. I did not have the opportunity to do so. I thought I would. Something came up. I don't do that. I'm doing this completely new on the side, just because. So, it's I'm not dedicated to this. I mean, I am dedicated to it, but I'm not, this isn't paying the bills or anything like that. So I'm going to try and be coming on every night, Monday through Thursday, weekdays. But I can't guarantee it every night. I got my own life. Sometimes things will come up, but I do want to try and come on as often as I possibly can. So I had a few things that I wanted to talk about this evening, or really yesterday evening, but that all kind of got sidetracked because this shooting happened this morning at the ICE facility in Dallas. Some asshole started sniping at the ICE facility in Dallas, Texas, and I think he killed one or two people. I didn't see all the details quite yet because, frankly, I didn't look too much into it because there's really not much to see. I mean, and I'll get into all that, why there's not much to see, and kind of the conclusions can be drawn pretty obviously. But there was a shooting, and apparently a guy, a sniper, with a rifle, set up basically across the street and started just taking pot shots at people walking around the building. Obviously was trying to target ICE agents. And I think killed someone, at least one person, maybe another, and injured a few people. And, another horrible shooting in broad daylight. And, it was obvious the moment that I heard the news. I even sent out a tweet. I said, Trantifa strikes again, which, lo and behold, the shooter, he shot himself on the scene. So thank God this isn't going to be another Tyler Robinson situation where he's running around for 3 days and no one knows who the hell killed, who the hell was a shooter. He took a few shots and then he put one in his skull apparently and killed himself after firing some shots at ICE. So he's dead. I don't even remember the guy's name, but he was this white kid. Looked almost like a tranny. I don't know if I don't think he was a tranny, but he looked just awful, just a freak. This guy was a total fucking freak. I mean, it was obvious just by looking at this guy. He was a total freak show. He killed himself pretty much right away. And, it was within hours of the shooting that he sketched on one of his bullets, like anti-ICE. And so it's obvious what this guy's motive was. He was another crazy leftist Antifa type nut job who shot up ICE because, he hates this, because he's been brainwashed and he hates this country and he's been lied to. Fundamentally he's been lied to. I mean, it's just, there's not even much to really say on the topic. It's just like, here we go again, We go to bed, we wake up, there's another leftist attack, a murderous attack. We go to bed, we wake up, there's another leftist murderous attack. It's not surprising that we see this shit. And, this is a product of our culture now, okay? And it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse from here. Because so far, and again, to give them some credence, I was watching JD Vance hosted basically it was the first Charlie Kirk show after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. They had the vice president come on and basically fill in for Charlie and host the show that day. And he interviewed a bunch of different people. And JD had a monologue where basically he said, we're going to go after these people. We're going to go after their financiers, Antifa financiers. It may be slower progress than you like. It may be slower progress than I like. But we are going to go after them. We're not forgetting Charlie here. And yeah, the progress is pretty fucking slow at this point. It is. I mean, it gives me a little bit of faith that you have the vice president of the United States, really setting his sights on leftist terrorism I hope the president feels the same way, although, hell, I don't know what Donald Trump feels. I mean, if you watch that speech that he gave at Charlie Kirk's memorial service, I mean, it was just a disgrace the whole time. He's talking about hyping up fucking Tylenol, making your kids autistic, which, like, I couldn't care less about. I don't give a shit, okay? That's not to say that I don't care about what's causing autism, and maybe Bobby Jr. and Trump are onto something there. I don't really know. But, like, at this point, I don't give a shit about anything. Like, there's three real things that there's three things that I really, really care about in this country today. One is immigration, obviously, because we're losing our country, okay? This flood of millions and millions and millions of immigrants, legal and illegal, coming in every single year is destroying the fabric of our society, and we're just not going to be America anymore at this rate. I mean, we keep bringing in these third worlders, and eventually we're going to get to a point where this country is just no longer, I mean, it's no longer a nation. It's just a bunch of different people groups constantly fighting over the levers of power and electing their own ethnic representatives to fight for whatever's left of the pot. Of course, riddled with crime as well. I mean, that's the number one issue is get the illegals out, cut down on legal immigration, which I would say Trump has done a pretty good job of so far. Second issue would be just the cultural rot and corruption in our society, okay? And that's fed from the highest levels of civil society, right? So the media, academia, Hollywood, even up to finance and the banks. I mean, those are the people that are really driving the sort of cultural decay that leads to the Tyler Robinsons of the world, that leads to the Catholic school shooters of the world, like what happened in Minnesota when the satanic trans nut job shot up a bunch of little elementary school kids, right? It's that type of shit that leads to, or it's the superstructure of it all that kind of hangs over our society that through a trickle-down effect produces these types of people, okay? It's the second thing I really care about. And the third thing I really care about is just like being able to, I don't know, fucking like afford a home, you know? Like our economy just doesn't work. And that's not to say I'm a socialist. I'm not by any means, or a left winger on economics at all. But like I'm for capitalism. I'm for free markets. But it's not working the way it's set up right now, okay? Young people can't afford a home. And if you can't afford a home, how the fuck are you going to get married? How the fuck are you going to have kids and support a family on a single income where, I don't know, your wife, the mother of your children, can actually stay home and take care of your children? It's impossible in today's society. I saw actually, this is a tweet that I have to bring up, and I know I'm going on a tangent here because I'm trying, I want to get back on track, but I have to bring up this tweet. And I retweeted it because it's insane, but it's not surprising. It just helps you put into context how fucked our country really is. And this is the type of shit that like will actually destroy America. I mean, there's other stuff out there that is really, really ruinous and really, really sucks and will slowly degrade the country. But this is the stuff that's happening now that is going to make America unlivable. So this is a statistic, all right? It's Americans who were married and owned a home by 30 years old. In 1950, it was 50% of the population. In 1960, it was 52% of the population. In 1970, it was 48% of the population. 1980 ticks down slightly, 45% of the population. 1990, it's 43% of the population. In 2000, it's 35% of the population. In 2010, it's 25% of the population. And in 2025 today, it's 12%. 12% of the population is married and owns a home by 30 years old. I don't give a shit what the GDP is. If you can't actually create a country where young people can conceivably get married and own their own home, you don't have a country. I mean, you're fucked. You're completely fucked. That's like the foundation of living in a society, in a republic, because you have to have responsible citizens who actually have a stake in the system And the only way that you're going to have a stake in the system is if you're a property owner, or at the very least are a taxpayer or a contributor and have a family or raising a family, right? Because if you don't have a second generation to pass things on to, then who the fuck gives a shit about our system, right? When you're gone, everything's going to be gone. And who cares what the legacy, what happens down the road in the society? No one cares if you're not producing children, if you're not producing offspring. And as for the stakes in the society right now, who gives a shit if you can't even own anything? If you can't actually own your own piece of property that you can actually defend? None of that matters. And it's getting worse. It's getting worse and worse and worse as the years go on. And I'm sorry. And look, this is not, the decline in those numbers is not entirely down to economics, okay? It's not entirely an economic matter. Economics do play a large role, because if you do want to own a home these days, it's pretty tough to do that on a single income. I mean, it just is. Even if you're making like six figures, okay? Even if you're making like $100,000, most of the people in America who are making $100,000, they usually live in a big city where the homes are unaffordable. So good luck owning a home there. And if you're making even like 60 to 80, which is like kind of where the median income is, I think the median income in America is like $71,000. I mean, you can't own a home anywhere. You have to, in order to own a home, you have to have a two-income household. Well, if you have a two-income household, how the hell are you going to have any kids? You know, it's very, very difficult to have kids when two people are working all the time, because then you have to pay for childcare. And this is all stuff that's been talked about in depth. Not to mention, you know, there is a whole cultural level to this of like, why are people not getting married? Why are people delaying marriage? And a lot of that is just due to I mean, there's all sorts of cultural factors that factor into that, obviously. I mean, men are much less likely to go to college or graduate these days, which means that actually in a lot of circumstances, women are the breadwinners. And, you know, I don't really care how you cut it, but no woman is going to actually love and appreciate a man that she makes more than. Okay, it's wired into their biology. They're not going to respect you if you don't bring in more than them. Period. End of discussion. That almost never works, because it's just hardwired in the female biology. They want someone who can be a provider, a caretaker, someone who can really control the home and be a protector. And that's what women look for in men. And far too often you have women who are getting degrees, men aren't. They're getting jobs, men oftentimes are, or if men are getting jobs, they're very blue collar jobs, which aren't making the type of income that someone with a college degree would. And it's making, you know, prospects for getting married a lot tougher. And there's all sorts of other factors that I could go into. I mean, you know, the type of promiscuousness in our society, pornography in our society, which is making men in particular basically just sexually impotent. I could go on and on about that stuff, and that's not really what I came on here to talk about. I'm going on a tangent here, but the point is like, I don't really give a shit about what's causing autism. Not that that doesn't matter, okay? Not that autism isn't a problem, and it's increased, you know, massively over the past 50 years. And the same trend where you see declining home ownership and marriage for people under 30, you're also seeing a massive rise in autism, which, you know, wouldn't surprise me if those things are correlated, by the way. So it's not to dismiss that as like being a non-issue. It's not that it's a non-issue, but like, I just don't care. I don't care at this point compared to the other problems in America. There's things that are a lot worse. There's things that are a lot bigger deals. And they couldn't be more obvious over these past couple of weeks. What are those bigger deals? Well, one, the entire fabric of our society is coming apart because of immigration, because of mass migration. I mean, we literally don't even have a country anymore. You go to parts of this country and they're not even remotely recognizably American. And I touched on this in my last stream, is that, the left, Democrats, they welcomed in mass migration for years because they thought, oh, well, they'll come here and they're mostly from the third world, lower IQs. They'll have to rely on some sort of government assistance. They'll automatically be Democrat supporters, not to mention because we'll want more of them to come in. And so they'll empathize with us and they'll vote for us and we'll have a permanent majority. And it's like, look how that's working out for you, Democrats. Zoran Mamdani's going to be the next mayor of New York. There's some Somali guy that's going to be the next mayor of Minneapolis. It's like you've imported so many that now they're not even electing you, Democrats. I mean, these people are Democrats, but Democrats in name only. They're just electing interlopers. They're just electing one of their own. They're forming ethnic enclaves in our country that have nothing to do with our country. It's not like these people are coming here. Like Ilhan Omar is a great example of someone who comes to this country, is given all the benefits of this country, and has used her entire career to destroy this country from the inside because she's in no way American. She's in no way American. I don't care what piece of paper she has. She's not an American. Zoran Mamdani is another example. He's the New York mayoral candidate who's going to be their next mayor. You have the mayor of the leading city in this country is in no way American. He wasn't born here. He only became a citizen 8 years ago. Like that even means fucking anything. It doesn't. There's no heritage. There's no connection to the country. And, they're not even electing Democrats. I mean, these people have a D next to their name, but how are they Democrats? I mean, when I think of Democrats, I think of Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. And I think of Hillary Clinton, and I think of John Kerry, and I think of like these, and Joe Biden for that matter, okay? That's what I think of when I think of Democrats. How is Zoran Mamdani a Democrat exactly? Like, sure, he has more in common with the Democrats than he does the Republicans, but he's not an American. He's just fundamentally not an American. And he wants to, off the backs of a bunch of other non-Americans infecting New York City, wants to transform the city into something that's more akin to what he came from, which is Uganda and India, which, sorry, I'd prefer not to live in a country that resembles anything like India or Uganda. I actually think those countries suck, and it's not hard to discern those countries suck. I want to live in America, okay? And unlike these interlopers who have another place to go, I've got no other place to go. I've got nowhere else to go. This is my home. I was born here. I have nowhere else. It's this or nothing. And it's increasingly becoming nothing. So, you have this other leftist attack on an ICE facility, murderous assassination, try and shoot ICE officers, which I don't even think this guy shot any ICE officers. I could be wrong about that, but I don't even think he killed any ICE officers. I think he just shot like some random passersby. Not to diminish it. I mean, it's horrible, of course. But like, it was a targeted attack on an ICE facility, which is immigration, naturalization, or immigration and customs enforcement. And, I mean, we should expect this, okay? How many like leading Democrat leftist politicians have called ICE the American Gestapo in the past 6 months? A lot of them, okay? And you take that, trickles down into the sort of online Reddit sphere and the online sort of left sphere. And it doesn't take a whole lot for someone who's got a screw loose, which a lot of these people on the left do have a screw loose. I mean, for God's sakes, they think men can be fucking women. And in the case of Tyler Robinson, will actively fuck men who are becoming women, quote unquote, becoming women. Yeah, they got a screw loose. It doesn't take a lot for them to, knock that screw out of their head fully and go do something like what Tyler Robinson did, or do something like what this ICE shooter did, which honestly, I don't even give a shit about this guy's name. He's again, this is not a story. I mean, it's a story I want to cover tonight, but it's not something that I really even took a lot of time to look at, because within the moment I saw someone shot up an ICE facility, it's like, I know every fact here before the facts even came out. And then the facts did come out, And it just confirmed what we all already knew, that this was another leftist terrorist attack against ICE because they're actually trying to fix America, fix at least one aspect of what's wrong in America, which, of course, like I said, is that our country is being flooded with people who are not Americans. You know, ICE is doing their job of getting non-Americans out of America. They're restoring the nation, which, of course, is not just some economic zone. It's actually a people with a shared heritage and a culture and a history together. That's what ICE is doing. And so, of course, these leftists want to kill him because they don't want this country to be America. They don't like America. And you know what? Frankly, why should they? You know, Tyler Robinson's 22. I'm 25. He's seeing the same shit I'm seeing. 12% married and have a home under 30 years old. He's seeing that as well as I am. Now, not that a guy like Tyler Robinson would give a shit about someone getting married. I mean, he was a homosexual, you know. But, hey, I don't know. If stuff like that is happening in this country, it's just going to lead to radicalism on both sides. The issue is if you become a right-wing radical, like someone like myself, you don't go to violence, because if you're going to be like a nationalistic, conservative radical like myself, that inherently means that you must refrain from violence, because within that conservative ethos is an underlying Christian ethos, which rejects murderous violence on principle. You wouldn't be a conservative American radical if you were calling for violence, if you were engaging in violence. You wouldn't. It goes against the definition of what it means to be a based like Christian conservative radical. If you're engaging in violence, it goes against like what that fundamentally means. But on the left, all those, they have no regard for any of those structures. And so it means engaging in violence. That doesn't matter. Go for it. You know, it's fine. And you're just going to see more of this. And I mean, I woke up today and I saw this and I'm like, doesn't surprise me, but really, again, we're seeing this. Where is Trump? Where is the administration? You cannot rely on Congress. I said this last time. You can't rely on Congress. I saw today, oh, this just infuriated me. And I'm going to say what it is, and you're going to be like, how is that infuriating you, Matt? That seems like a nice gesture. But Congress today passed some resolution where they're going to start minting some coin with Charlie Kirk's face on it. I wanted to throw up in my mouth. Honestly, I did. And look, I get it. It's a nice gesture, you know. Certainly a way to honor Charlie Kirk. But who gives a fuck about a coin? Who gives a shit about a fucking coin? Who fucking cares about a goddamn silver dollar? How does a silver dollar with Charlie Kirk's face on it fix the fact that 12% of people are married and own a home under the age of 30? How does a silver dollar with Charlie Kirk's face on it fix the fact that a possessed transvestite shot up a bunch of elementary school kids like a month ago? How does a silver dollar with Charlie Kirk's face on it fix some guy going to an ICE facility and shooting it up? How does it fix Charlie Kirk getting murdered? How does it fix Irina Zarutska getting murdered? How does it fix Austin Metcalf getting murdered? And then a bunch of thuggish blacks raising $500,000 for the killer of Austin Metcalf because they liked that he killed a white kid. It doesn't. It's so shallow. It's so empty. It made me, I mean, like I said, it made me want to throw up. It's like just such an empty-handed, here you go. Sorry, this is all we can do for you. You wanted to restore America? Here's a coin. Fuck you. Fuck you is what I have to say. Which I don't expect anything from Congress, okay? The Republicans are so corrupt. They're just a disgrace of a party. They are just, I'm so disgusted by the Republican Party, as I think any Republican voter is. I think most Republican voters are disgusted by the Republican Party, as they should be. So I'm not even expecting anything from Congress, okay? Like a coin is exactly what I would expect from Congress, because they can't do anything else, you know? I expect something from Trump, though. I expect something from the administration. Where is the investigation into who's funding Antifa? Where are the RICO cases against these NGOs, these nonprofits that gave billions of dollars to BLM as they caused $1 billion in damage and burned down half of America's cities? Where the fuck is it? Where is it? Hell, for that matter, where's the pardon for Derek Chauvin? Because we all know at this point, obviously, George Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose. Where's Derek Chauvin's pardon? Trump. And this is not to say that I'm losing faith. This is not to say that I'm not still a Trump supporter. I am. I'm not a doomer on these things. You know, I'm not like, oh, Trump's just this or that or the other. I mean, of course, I would take Trump over Kamala any day. And I'll take, you know, hopefully J.D. Vance as a successor for Trump. I would take J.D. over Trump any day. All of it's to say is like, these threats are happening here. They're happening now. Like, we elected you to actually stop this shit. It's only gotten worse, the violence at least. And of course, the violence is aided and abetted, not just by the financial backers of these groups like Antifa and BLM and whatever it may be, but it's aided and abetted by the sort of American civil society superstructure, which has all been captured by the left, whether it's the academic setting, where every teacher, professor, university, college, they've all been captured by the radical left, right? Even Wall Street finance has been captured by the radical left. What's an ESG score? Which, if you don't know, ESG scores is basically these, it's like these nonprofits that basically rate companies on their environmental and social governance. Basically, how much do companies bend the knee to the left-wing agenda, and then grading companies based off of how loyal they are to the message. They basically influence hedge funds and institutional investors and what companies you should invest in, which ones you shouldn't. You know, where's the government should be going after that, right? There should be regulations put against that, because it's you're influencing the market. The market should operate on what's in the interest of this country and what's in the interest of a company's bottom line, right? That's how the free market is supposed to work. But it's not. And that's just another example. I mentioned academia. I mentioned finance. The media. The big story yesterday that I was talking about was that Jimmy Kimmel came back on air, which comes back on air. And God, he's such a slime ball, this guy, Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, I swear to God, he is so repulsive as a human being. He comes on and immediately has like crocodile tears and gives the most apology I've ever seen in my entire life, right? So the whole Jimmy Kimmel saga starts because in the days after Charlie Kirk's murder, Kimmel goes on and says that Tyler Robinson was a MAGA guy, basically. He was a right-winger, which is a complete lie. There was an uproar. A bunch of local stations that carry ABC said, sorry, our audience are like all Republicans. We can't air this guy. They pulled him. ABC did. They brought him back on. And he comes on, and Jimmy Kimmel gives this apology of like, I would never try to make light of or make a joke about Charlie Kirk's murder. And it's like, yeah, no one accused you of making light of his murder. No one said that you were joking about his murder. What you were accused of doing and what you did was you lied about the assassin. You said the assassin was a MAGA guy. You said the assassin was a right winger. And those lies actually have consequences because you, as an institutional media person, right? I always say this, okay? I call how the media operates. It's what I refer to as trickle down propaganda, okay? Because let's be honest here. Jimmy Kimmel's ratings in the toilet, right? Cable news ratings, CNN, MSNBC, even Fox in the toilet. The only people that watch the news, the only people that watch cable, the only people that watch the big networks are boomers, right? And they're dying off and their ratings are just plummeting. The only thing that is keeping television alive is live sports, the pharmaceutical industry because they play all the ads, and boomers. The boomers are dying off. Live sports are increasingly going to streaming platforms, and the pharmaceutical companies, they aren't going anywhere, but when the ratings stop, they're probably going to go away too. Which, by the way, that should just be prescription medication should not be allowed to. You should not be able to buy ad space for prescription medications. Period. End of discussion. We're the only country, other than I think New Zealand, in the developed world who allows pharmaceutical companies to advertise on television. Moving on though, or to get to my point, I should say. I call it trickle-down propaganda because, yeah, it's true. No one watches cable news, right? No one watches cable news except for a bunch of boomers. That being said, the narrative begins in the establishment media and the legacy corporate media. And then it has this trickle-down effect, right? How does the normie out there who doesn't watch the news, who doesn't even really care about politics, start posting black squares on their Instagram during the summer of Floyd? Well, it's because where do they get their news? They get their news from Taylor Swift and LeBron James, right? I mean, really, if you're a non-political person, right, just a normie who doesn't really care about politics, you might vote, you might not, but you still put a black square in your fucking Instagram profile during 2020 over fucking fentanyl addict George Floyd, degenerate criminal. How do you do that? Well, it's because your favorite celebrities were telling you and showing you the video on social media of the knee on his neck. That's how and why you did it. You didn't watch CNN, you didn't hear from Wolf Blitzer about George Floyd. You heard about him from fucking Taylor Swift. You heard about him from Dua Lipa. You heard about him from LeBron James, okay? And how did these celebrities hear about it? Well, it's that trickle-down effect. The media, the legacy media, sets the narrative, and because they are a legacy institution, cultural figures, influential figures, feel that they have weight, that the narrative that they set is the narrative that they have to abide by. Because if they don't abide by it, they feel that their position could be threatened, right? If you're a celebrity and you take a controversial stance on something, or even if you just refuse to speak out on the narrative issue set that day, well, then a rage mob will come after you and your employers will threaten you. And so you have to take a stance on it, whether you really believe in it or not. And I think a lot of them do believe in it because they've just been conditioned and it's the life they've lived in their whole entire lives. Like for instance, Taylor Swift is not naturally a liberal. Like, okay, LeBron James is naturally a liberal. He's a big black guy who grew up in the ghetto. He's naturally going to be a liberal, right? Big black athlete from the ghetto. But Taylor Swift is not naturally a liberal, okay? If Taylor Swift was not the most famous celebrity singer in the world, she would be a conservative. She would. She grew up in a normal two-parent household. You know, she might have drifted into liberalism into college, but then she would have found a guy and she would have gotten married. She'd probably have a couple of kids by now. And at that point, she would have just been like a standard, you know, conservative suburban housewife. But because she's been in the world, because she's been because she's a celebrity, because she's a platform, she's been in these leftist circles and she's been conditioned into it. And so then when the narrative comes down from the legacy media, which you've been conditioned is the truth, you've been conditioned this is the official story, you've been conditioned this is what you have to trust, then you're programmed and you realize, all right, I have to make a statement on this, or there's going to be backlash from either the top, my financial backers, my employers, or there's going to be backlash from underneath, from my fans, from the mob. And so you go along with the narrative. You go along with the dominant story just because you want to be popular and you want to maintain your fame. And then that trickles down to the normie. It trickles down to the guy who doesn't really give a shit about politics, but he watches NFL. He loves football. He loves football and he drinks beer. And he doesn't really give a fuck about politics, but then he sees all these NFL players kneeling for George Floyd and all these memorials for George Floyd. And all of a sudden he posts a fucking black square on his iPhone. Or if you're just the normie, like college freshman sorority girl, you don't give a shit about politics. You care about fucking getting drunk and going to bars and having fun, right? You're just some sorority girl at a college. But you see Taylor Swift, your favorite icon, your favorite musical icon, post a black square on her Instagram, and all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, now I have to care about this. You never watched cable news. You never read the New York Times. But that narrative trickles down through pop culture. But it's all set by the media. The narrative is set by the corporate establishment, legacy media. And so Kimmel comes back on, and he gives this big apology, non-apology, right? And cries crocodile tears while he's doing it. And it just made me so furious because, you know, he said, I never meant to make light of Charlie Kirk's murder. And it's like, yeah, we know. We know you didn't try to make light of his murder. That's not what you did. That's not what we're accusing you of. We are accusing you of lying. You lied about Tyler Robinson. You lied about who killed Charlie Kirk and why they did it. And why does it matter that you lied? Because you are part of the legacy media apparatus, which then sets the narrative, which then trickles down and then goes and gets fed to the normies. That's why something like 50% of Democrats actually believe that Tyler Robinson was a right-winger. And then there's consequences to those lies because you know what happens? People go and decide to shoot up an ICE facility because of those lies. People think, well, Tyler Robinson was a right-winger. That's where all the violence is coming from. They're the real bad guys. And if they're the real bad guys, if the right are the real bad guys, well, then it doesn't take a hop, skip, and a jump for when you hear someone say, you know, someone in the media or a politician say, ICE is the modern-day American Gestapo. Trump is the modern-day Hitler. Well, Tyler Robinson was a right-winger, so it's the right that's doing the violence in your mind. They're telling me ICE is rounding up all these innocent, wonderful people who have come to this country just want to make a better life for themselves. Trump is the modern-day Hitler. The violence is coming from their side. We have to fight back. We have to take arms into our own hands. And then you get what happened today with the guy shooting up the ICE facility and killing himself and I think at least one person was killed on the ground, a few more injured. There's consequences to this stuff, okay? It's bigger than just what's kind of happening here. This is just like the tragic end of it all, right? This is the tragic result, okay? And, you know, another example of a tragic result. I mean, Black Lives Matter. You don't get Irina Zarutska without Black Lives Matter. this lie is perpetrated that black people are getting incarcerated at much larger numbers than whites or other minorities because the police are racist. Okay, well, the solution to the police being racist is one, well, first off, every time that a cop arrests a criminal, he has to fear for his life. He has to fear end up being like Derek Chauvin, being sentenced to jail for the rest of his life for a crime they didn't even commit, number one. So the cops just say, hey, if it's in a bad neighborhood, if I have to risk my career, if I have to risk my, future freedom arresting a black person, then I'm just not going to patrol the black neighborhood. Okay? Police don't do their jobs. What do we get? Well, on the one hand, you get the Daniel Pennies of the world, who was the white guy on the subway in New York. I think this is a while ago. I think it was almost a year ago at this point. Who strangled that homeless vagrant black guy, that schizophrenic black guy on the subway car, because there were no cops there. Because cops just let this guy go on the subway car and threaten passengers. And so Daniel Penny tries to subdue him. The guy passes away. And Daniel Penny gets put on fucking trial. He got off, thankfully, thank God. But his months of his life were taken away. He spent thousands, I'm sure, on legal bills. Because what? Because he was doing something that the cops wouldn't do. Why wouldn't the cops do it? Why wouldn't the cops keep vagrants like that black guy that Daniel Penny choked out? Why wouldn't they keep that guy off the subway? Because they're afraid they're going to be the next Derek Chauvin. The other, far more tragic consequence to these lies being perpetrated is what happened to Irina Zarutska. You let this vagrant, this DeCarlos Brown, the guy who murdered Irina, the poor Ukrainian woman on the train in Charlotte, he's a habitual criminal. In and out of jail his whole life. You never really lock him up. You give him a slap on the wrist over and over and over again. He's obviously got mental problems, probably has drug problems too. You let him on this train, and he randomly stabs this woman in a racially motivated attack. Mind you, he stabs her to death, and then he walks away and says, I got that white girl. No remorse, by the way. Happy that he did it. It's a consequence of these lies. There's a consequence. There's a human toll to these lies. The Black Lives Matter lie, you see it in what happened to Irina. You see it in what happened to Daniel Penny. The lie that the right is violent, that all the violence is coming from the right, that Donald Trump is Hitler, that Republicans are fascists, that they want to, that the lie that Republicans saying we think that men cannot become women and vice versa, and we think that transgender people should get actual psychiatric treatment instead of their delusions being affirmed, and that being called a trans genocide. That's actually what they call it, okay? There's a reason that you're seeing these John Brown gun clubs pop up all around the country, which, by the way, I don't know if you've heard about this John Brown gun club phenomenon. It's basically these troons who are arming themselves and forming these militias across the country to murder anyone who doesn't affirm their delusions, that they're not actually, that they're women or that they're men, when they are, in fact, the other sex. And, which, by the way, I'm going to talk more about these John Brown gun clubs that you're seeing pop up across the country. I'm probably going to talk about that a little bit more tomorrow. I just don't really have the time tonight. Like I said, it's not going to be a super long show. But it's because of, there's a lie. The fundamental lie is men can become women and vice versa. And then when normal people, not even like Republicans, but just like normal people say, okay, no, that's insane, which it is, obviously. When people say no to that, and then they lie more and they say, okay, if they don't, if you're a man who thinks he's a woman and all of society doesn't give you these cross-sex hormones and let you mutilate your body and then treat you like you are actually the opposite sex, then they're actually trying to committed genocide against trans people because by them denying your identity, quote unquote, they are in effect killing your true self, which is so ironic because changing your gender, becoming trans, is in effect an act of killing oneself. I talked about that a couple episodes ago. It's lies like that. They come from the top, they trickle down, and then it results in this violence that we're seeing. And of course, like I said again, the lie that Jimmy Kimmel said, that Tyler Robinson was on the right. Well, if you're an idiot and you're not, if you're totally in the mainstream bubble, if you've never, like, I don't know, looked on YouTube or like been on Twitter, or even if you have, but you're just in your own bubble on there, you hear Jimmy Kimmel say that, or you probably don't even hear that Jimmy Kimmel say that Tyler Robinson was MAGA. But that message trickles down to wherever you did hear it. And then eventually from somewhere, you hear that Tyler Robinson was a right-winger. Or if you don't hear Tyler Robinson was a right-winger, you hear someone like half of the politicians, half of the left-wing politicians out there say, well, you know, this is the video that Ilhan Omar posted that basically said in regards to Charlie Kirk, hateful words result in hateful actions. In other words, you have a sitting member of Congress saying, you know, Charlie Kirk at the end of the day, he deserved to get shot because he was saying hateful things. He was preaching violent rhetoric, which is in and of itself violent rhetoric. Like is it an oxymoron? Is that the word that I'm looking for? Basically, those two things don't go together. You can't have, by definition, you cannot have violent rhetoric, okay? Speech is inherently not violence. That's why we have freedom of speech in this country, so that we can work out our political differences through speech and debate, like Charlie was, instead of with at the end of the barrel of a gun, like Tyler Robinson would. That's why we have the First Amendment. But you have people like Ilhan Omar, who don't give a shit about this country, who are not of this country, who have no problem with saying, hey, hateful words result in hateful actions. Hey, Charlie Kirk had it coming for what? Speaking his mind, for engaging in a respectful debate with people, changing minds. Of course, that's the real danger that he posed. So, you know, this is the consequences. And we're seeing it again. Just this morning, you wake up and it's like, oh, someone shot up an ICE facility. And again, it's like I didn't even pay a whole lot of attention to that story because the moment I saw someone shot up an ICE facility, I could already draw all my conclusions, and all my conclusions were right. It doesn't take a whole lot of IQ points to look at that and realize, oh, this is what happened. Here's why it happened. And this shit is going to just keep happening. That's why I say I'm begging for the administration, for Trump, to take action on this. And taking action on this does not mean declaring Antifa a terrorist organization. That's a good start. There has to be action taken against the wider superstructure of lies. There has to be action taken against the wider superstructure of foreign interlopers who will use those lies to forward their own agenda. There has to be action taken against the legacy institutions that have been captured by the left in this country that still wield massive influence over this country. Their influence has to be destroyed. And it can be done. It's not that it can't be done. There are ways to do it. Again, I think, declaring Antifa a domestic terrorist organization might be a good start. Maybe, I don't know. It could be just smoke and mirrors. There's not much you can do with an EO, executive order, in that regard. But hey, maybe at least their attitude's in the right direction. Maybe, hopefully. But there has to be more. Okay, declare Antifa a domestic terrorist organization. Then start investigating where these groups get their funding from. And then once you start investigating where these groups get their funding from, start bringing cases and start building your way up. And it's multifaceted, okay? Because so you have the left wing lies, right, which are just just general political lies, like for instance Jimmy Kimmel saying that Tyler Robinson was MAGA. That's just kind of a standard political lie, right? And so that's one thing that you can attack, which you could by taking Kimmel off the air. The FCC has the power to do that, and they should use that power, because you do have a responsibility to the public good as a public broadcaster, not to spread bold-faced lies and then not even retract the lies, which Jimmy Kimmel didn't even apologize for what he said. He didn't apologize for the lie. He didn't even say that he lied, even though he obviously did. So yeah, get him off the air. I would like to see the Trump administration do that. And of course, they'll be super controversial and they'll say that he's infringing on free speech and they'll try to turn Jimmy Kimmel into a martyr. Don't care. Don't care. Sorry. For years, you could get permanently banned off Twitter if you said, I don't believe that Leah Thomas is a woman. You get banned off Twitter for calling Caitlyn Jenner Bruce. You get banned off Twitter for like saying an edgy slur. I don't really give a shit about the free speech context of taking Jimmy Kimmel off the air. Because again, I wouldn't say that's much of a violation of free speech. Jimmy Kimmel can still go on Twitter. He can still take a show, online where he doesn't have to be held to the standards of a national broadcaster that's regulated by the FCC. He can still do that. I'm not saying that Jimmy Kimmel should be silenced, but you shouldn't be able to just outright lie about Charlie Kirk's assassin on a national network. So that's a political lie that creates this violence. But there's other lies that create this violence. One lie, for example, is that as long as you have a piece of paper that says you're a citizen, then you're just as much American as me. No, you're not. No, you're not. That's a lie, okay? Zoran Mamdani is in no way American. Ilhan Omar is in no way American. Just to name two examples. There's many, many more. They're not Americans. I don't care what piece of paper they have. That's a lie. That's a lie. Another lie that creates violence like this. The fact that men can become women, and that's valid. That's a lie. It's a lie. That lie should be extinguished. How do you extinguish that lie? Well, you regulate it, okay? Completely in the power. Congress could pass a law tomorrow that says transgenderism is not real. As such, surgeries, hormone treatments, all this stuff banned throughout the country. If you're a healthcare provider and someone comes to you and says, I think I was born in the wrong body, I think I'm actually a woman, then they can treat you. Sure, they can certainly treat you, but they can't give you cross-sex hormones. They can't mutilate your genitals and call you the opposite sex. I don't care if you're a child or an adult. And if you're a child and your parents push that on you, you should be taken from your parents, put in child protective services, and your parents should be locked up. Obviously, this should be common sense to everyone. This is the moderate solution, by the way. I'm preaching the moderate solution here, okay? But the lies have become so big and so oppressive that these moderate solutions from me are going to be called radical. Okay? Saying that it should be illegal nationwide to change your sex and be treated like that's normal, that is a controversial statement. In no sane country should that be a controversial statement. In no sane society should that be a controversial statement. That should be utterly non-controversial. But the lie has gotten so big that it is controversial. Sorry if my camera was wobbling there. I had my knee on my desk and was shaking my computer. But, back to it. As I was saying, kind of going along these lines, these should be non-controversial statements. But they are. That's the level of lies that we're up against. That's the level of moral corruption that has spread through our society. And that moral corruption has consequences. It has violent consequences. And we're seeing that once again today with this ICE shooter. Like I said, I'm not going to do a super long show today. I was touching on the whole statistic thing that, basically it's impossible to own a home and get married by the time you're 30 in this country, which if you can't get married and own a home by the time you're 30, how the hell are you going to have any kids, right? And then if Americans aren't having kids, well, then at that point, you kind of have to start importing millions of third worlders, or else who's going to be the workforce? Who's going to, actually contribute to the tax pool? That's, I think fundamentally, there's some economic, like I was saying, there are certainly economic issues there. There's certainly economic factors that are causing those numbers to be so dire in modern America. But there's a lot of cultural factors too. There's a lot of cultural factors that contribute to that as well. A lot of cultural factors. And those cultural, social factors are fundamentally built on this superstructure of lies. And these lies are so embedded in our society because the lies have taken over all of our legacy institutions and have penetrated down to the lowest levels through these institutions that once held a lot of respect in this country because they earned it. And they've used that legacy establishment, I guess, how should I call it? That sort of legacy, I can't think of the word, but that established credential almost to then push these gross lies that have utterly corrupted our society from root to stem. And that is what I think has to be the direction after the Kirk assassination. And it's got to be put on Trump, Because again, I don't expect anything out of Congress. I just don't. I don't expect anything out of Congress. The Republicans are it's such a corrupt and just pointless, stupid party. It really is just a spineless, weak, nothing party. And so I have to look to the president to use his power in the executive branch to combat these lies as best that he can. And we can, or we're not going to have a country. It's going downhill fast, really fast. And I'm just hoping for something. Maybe it's just going slow, and that progress that I'm hoping to see is going to build over time over the next weeks and months, and hopefully we'll eventually get the results that I think is required for what we're facing. But, I'm not seeing it right now. But I have hope still. I have hope. So I'm going to leave you on that message. I am going to kind of wrap up here. I think tomorrow, I will be doing another show tomorrow. I'm not sure what time. Again, I try to shoot for these shows somewhere between it's probably going to be between 8 and 10. I'll shoot out a tweet letting everyone know when I'm coming on, tweet the link. But I appreciate everyone's support. My friends, whoever has shared this, whoever's watched this, I get it. It's I usually do about an hour every night. I said this night would be a little bit shorter. I'm getting close to an hour right now. But any support is really appreciated. Like I said, I'm brand new at this. My mic sucks. I'm just going off of my stupid computer mic right now. I need to invest in a mic, but I said the moment I started, I don't care if I get 0 views a night. I feel compelled to do this because, people we can't sit on the sidelines anymore. We've got to start talking about these issues, and we've got to start getting people involved. So this is just my small way of doing it. And I appreciate anyone who turned in. Please like, share, subscribe, follow me on Twitter. I really, really appreciate it, y'all. Have a great evening. Good night.